Hello, everybody. Jess, we can just move the slide now and get a look at everybody who's joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever it is, whatever it is to each of you. Hello, everybody. So, good, as I said, it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I have no idea where in the world people are coming from, but I do know even our panelists are coming from early morning to late at night. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. And you're here for the Sacred Dance Guild's quarterly conversation, Is This Sacred Dance? And I always find this is such a nourishing experience when we connect, communicate, and collaborate globally in real time. It still boggles my mind a bit that we're all kind of wherever we are and being able to chat together. I find it just, it's a nourishing thing. So I welcome you with open arms and I thank you for engaging what I know will be a dancing dialogue. So my name is Wendy Morel and I am currently the president of the Sacred Dance Guild and I am zooming in from Ottawa, Canada. We'd love you to put your name in the chat. Also, your email, if you didn't register by email and you want to receive stuff from us after this thing, please put that in the chat too so we can keep track of all of that. I think that's all. We are recording this panel and we'll send you the recording as long as other information that we're going along. So we're really excited today because this is the fourth and the final panel in the series that began back in February 2021. And we started this sort of conversation on the 63rd birthday, which was February 2021, of the Sacred Dance Guild. And it was one way to celebrate, to reflect, and also to record what we believe to be really important conversations, both for present and for future generations. The first panel in February was part of a weekend mini festival, and it focused on various aspects of dance as an expression of the sacred. It looked at things like community, physical disabilities, environmental dance, the social justice. And then we moved from that. In June, we dove into faith-based expressions. We looked at different faiths around the world and how that sort of spoke to the whole concept of dance as an expression of the sacred. And then in November, we jumped into healing art, the healing art of dance. We had people looking at who worked in prisons, who worked with women's groups, who worked in shelters, many, many ways of using dance as a healing art. And so now we've already had our 64th birthday, which was February the 10th, 2022, which means we're now in our 65th year. And I maybe think of that as the age of being someone who's past my 65th year. This is sort of the age of wisdom, maybe. So we're continuing to grow. And while we may be wise, we're also learning at all times. We continue to be curious and to learn. And just to open those doors and to open our minds to new ways, different ways of thinking, ways that we might not have thought if someone said, well, I don't think that's sacred dance, until you talk to someone who does. And then your mind expands just a little bit more. So I think that having all of those is sort of, I think of it as a huge kaleidoscope that we are. All these beautiful little pieces, individual and perfect in their own right. But when you move a kaleidoscope, isn't that when the magic happens? So for me, this is what this is all about, just the magic. So as I mentioned, we are recording this. We have recorded the first three. If you haven't seen them, we will be sending out a link to all of them. And the importance to that is that it's not just what's happening now, but it's what people can continue to look at. I am so excited to go back and watch the first three and this one when they're done and just see where that brings me and what new things it brings to my mind. So just a few things. I know that many people here have maybe been with the Sacred Dance Guild since beginning of time. Some people are coming in from maybe the International Dance Council or people who you know, some of the panelists know. So before, just a couple of words about the Sacred Dance Guild, just to put the context to all of that. So this organization began in the 1950s in New England, a northeastern part of the United States. And initially, it was just a couple of dancers who lived in close proximity to each other. And they wanted to figure out a way to take their spiritual world and their dance world. Many of them were dancers who'd studied modern dance or different forms of dance and really wanted to bring that together. And they worshipped in different places. There were Christian communities, Jewish, and a Unitarian fellow who was part of this small little group. And so from the very beginning, it was the concept of interfaith. But at that time, they were looking at it initially as ways to take their religious understanding and bring dance and movement into that. Now, of course, over the years, that continued to expand as we started looking at outside of the faith based or religious based concept and looked at all the many ways that people experience dance from something that was sacred within them, something that touched their heart or their soul. So the guild continued to expand and shift and evolve to incorporate as many things as we can because we truly believe that we don't define what's sacred. You do. Everybody themselves defines what's sacred within them. And it isn't for any organization to tell you you are or you're not. And so we are always looking at if we're missing something, if we've not contained or added, to kind of keep expanding that consciousness as we go around the world and try to become one group, one people. I think that's kind of the basis of all that. Um, I, we have a one page kind of document that we have on our website, and I really invite everyone to look at that. And if you see something or read something or don't read, even more importantly, if you don't read something, it says, wait a minute, I don't see this. That's what really we want to look at. That's the whole purpose of these conversations, to keep opening and expanding that concept of what is the sacred and what is the dance. So it goes everywhere from people who are professional dancers in a particular form to people who dance in their living room and shut all the curtains before they do that. And it doesn't matter. If your heart is singing, if your soul is being engaged, then that's it. That's what it's about. So, let me just, I think I've said all I need to say. I don't want to yak too long. Before I go further, I want to introduce Jessica. She's here somewhere. I'm going to find her. Hang on one sec. Um, I'm going to add. So here's Jessica Abahar. Jessica is zooming in from New York City, and Jessica is our tech gal today. So if you have any issues or something happens, please put a note in the chat, and she'll try to help you and make that all work. You all have probably been zooming for at least 2 years, so you know all this stuff. Keep your sound off when you don't have something to say. As I said to all of us earlier, we keep this as informal as we can. We really do want to feel that we're sitting here at the table together, that we're all just having time to talk and to chat. So I think that's it. So anything else, Jessica, you want to add on a technical note before we go further? No? Okay. So as I mentioned, let's remove that. We also have invited Konstantin Contagianis. I'm so bad at names, so I apologize when I say them incorrectly. But Konstantin is a member of the International Dance Council, the Council International of Dance out of France. He's on the executive committee, and he is responsible for the program that they started called Dance and Spirituality, and where the Sacred Dance Guild also joined this organization because we truly believe this is how we continue to globally. So Konstantin, I'm going to ask you to say a few words of welcome from yourself. Hey.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening. I'm very happy to be again with you, even if I have to stay just to only in the beginning. Um, Happy birthday for the 64 years. Dance and spirituality is too young. It's just 2 or 3 years. I'll give you our website so you can have a look. We are practically finishing its first construction, but it's a site which has to be enriched by everybody. In this site, you will have also the recordings of our 7, 8 seminars we did in the years 2021 practically. We hope to do more as COVID seems to go away. We worked in parallel with the Sacred Dance Guild. Wendy came soon to honor our seminars. I came to see yours, but I hope we will try to do something more together. I would like also to wish you a happy dance day. For those who may not know what is it, every 29 of April, we celebrate the International Dance Day. It was founded in 1982 by the Committee of Dance of the Institute of Theatre, who is also official partner of UNESCO. Still, till then, it is always supported by the International Dance Council. Every year, the Institute of Theatre invites a great dancer to speak, whereas the International Dance Council sends a message to its members to push them to think on a certain subject. So sometimes we're working with other NGOs like the plastic arts. So we had a year when we thought about dance and plastic arts. In 2019, it was the year of the dance and spirituality. So we had an inaugural congress in the Bahamas, and then the COVID came. So this year, um, because of the war in the Eastern Europe, our president asked everybody to have contacts with displaced Ukrainian dancers and help them to find a shelter. So it's a very particular year for all of us, and particularly in Europe. Also, we have another problem which sounds to be less important than the displacement of so many Ukrainians, is a kind of cancel culture against Russian artists who live in the West outside of Russia. So, of course, we can not approve those things. We hope that all this dark period will finish, and the soonest the better. I wish you again a happy dance day, and Wendy, I hope we will do much more than going on in parallel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Constance. We are looking forward to doing more things together because again, as I said, communicating, connecting, collaborating around the world, it is what we must do. So we have to, with the wars and the more we do of this, the more we will begin to understand each other, and the more we will understand that we're all in this together. It's one planet, one life, one place that we live. So before we move to the panel, I'm just going to start with some movement. Everybody shake yourself up a little bit. Give yourself a wiggle around if you need to. Yeah. So we started Sacred Sundays when the pandemic first began 2 years ago, and we've been running them almost every Sunday since with all kinds of different things. And we always start with this body prayer. So I invite you to do it with me. You can follow my movement, or you can do your own movement, whatever works for you. And we just take a deep breath first. And it says, we come together in gratitude with open minds and with our hearts cracked open. We breathe and we pause. We give deep bows to the divine, the great mystery, for providing each of us our own unique journey, and for the collective journey that we travel together on this amazing planet. In humility, we open ourselves for the strength and for the wisdom to value both the struggles, and there are lots of those, but the joys, and there are lots of those that we encounter on the road we travel together. Namaste. Thank you all for being here. Thank you who have joined us. Thank you, panelists. So before I just want to introduce my very good friends and our moderator for today, Hia Samau, who's calling in today from where she currently lives in Paris. She is a somatic movement educator, a dance writer, and a scholar. She's originally from Estonia, lived in the U.S. for a decade, where she got her PhD from Columbia, which is where I met her many years ago, and now based in Paris, where she divides herself between many different passions. She's a dancer, she's a writer, and she's a teacher, and she does all of those beautifully. She writes about movement and health, dance history, the artistic process. She teaches Nia, body logo strength training, journey dance. She loves to inspire people, and she does. To enjoy energy, healing, and aliveness that the dancing and the movement gives us. He is also going to be teaching a 6-week Sacred Dance Guild series coming up starting in June called Our Sacred Dance, Our Sacred Space. So do watch for information about that. So without any further, I'm going to put Hia on the spotlight here, and I'm going off. Oh.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for this introduction. And it's always great to be here with the Sacred Dance Guild, a very special place. I am super excited about our conversation today. We're going to talk about the secret and the sacred, and the profound and the profane. Yeah, so we'll explore whether there are some elements of sacredness that we can find in dance forms that are somehow secret or have been commonly seen as profane. Yeah. So we have invited 5 amazing panelists. Thank you so much for coming. We have here Marianne Wapke, Sharzad Horshandi, Odelia Shargian, Felan Shiva, and Chikava Honeychild. So I'll introduce every speaker one by one, just very briefly. And I wanted to tell you that for fuller biographical information, please go to the Sacred Dance Guild's website. We have asked each panelist to introduce themselves and their dance form, and they were also invited to show us some videos and photos. And then we also asked each panelist to share with us a movement, expression, or a gesture that somehow resonates with them and shows us who they are, what their dance practice is like. Okay, so first we have Marianne Wapke joining us from Australia. She is an Indigenous midwife and a registered nurse. She uses art as a tool for empowerment and self-expression. In her work with women, their babies, and families, she uses art to create culturally safe birth practices. So we are very excited to hear from you.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement to the traditional landowners of the land from where I'm meeting with you today, Meanjin, Brisbane, the land of the Turrbal and the Yagara people. I'd also like to quickly acknowledge Rose Goodall, beautiful young mum, mother of 3 with a newborn baby who has got up early this morning to join us. It is young women like Rose that I dedicate this presentation to. I have a slide presentation that I would like to show you. And this presentation is about 2 of the unique practices that I use, perinatal dreaming and understanding country, which is developed from wisdom and insight shared by my great-great-grandmother. I refer to them as reimagined maps of the inner landscapes of perinatal and postnatal landscapes of the psyche. So what I'm talking to you about today is how I've used dance to help reveal these dimensions of the psyche and the impact, the lifelong impact of our time in the womb and the birth and early postnatal, those first 1,000 days, the lifelong impact on our perceptions and how we live our lives. So if we start with the first slide, thanks, Jessica. Of course, our journey, the sacred dance, begins with conception. So throughout my career, I've used various genres of dance to promote an ecology that is profoundly orientated towards creating a spiritual synergy between mother and her fetus or baby and any other significant others that are involved. An ideal conception is a dance employing a diversity of genres. Some of the many are celebrated here today and embraced and endorsed by the Sacred Dance Guild. Conception in its organic form is a sensual dance of love and connection between two individuals. The masculine and feminine uniting, inviting a soul to incarnate. It weaves an intimate connection between the physical world and the sacred. However, particularly in the cohort of young first-time Indigenous mothers that I've been working with over the last decade or so, the conditions connected to conceiving are often less than idyllic. Many of my young mums are oblivious for weeks or months that they are pregnant, continuing with lifestyle choices that are detrimental to not only their own health, but consequently the health of their baby. And we know from epigenetic studies, this activates and compounds transgenerational trauma in the fetus and imprints a sense of alienation, a separateness from the mother and the sacred. When a pregnancy is unwanted, the mother is unsupported or traumatized, marginalized, addicted, or unwell, the fetus can be robbed of its birthright to fully embody the human experience, the dance of life, to know the energy, the strength and resilience and the joy of being, which is all beginning in the womb. The next slide. So the landscapes of the amniotic and the oceanic universes are the first internal domains encountered and are idyllically experienced as uninterrupted, blissful synergy and union with the mother. The fetus floats in an idyllic environment with every need met instantly. They are safe, nourished, and in a creative space of absolute bliss in the belly of a conscious mum. The world brings forth everything needed to thrive and flourish. We feel precious and valued. This exquisite environment is internally interpreted through the lens of the amniotic universe or deep space, or oceanic bliss and paradise conditions connected to oceans and seas. Women of high degrees, fully initiated grandmothers and aunties, were custodians of the landscape of birthing. They understood the imperative of a good womb experience for the overall long-term health and well-being of the fetus throughout their life journey until they returned to the ancestral realms. They ensured the songlines that provided connection between the sacred realms and forms remained intact. The next slide. Thanks, Jessica. Even in the most idyllic womb conditions, they will become toxic at some point, heralding inevitable change. If there is a powerful foundation of connectedness, the dance transforms creatively to express what is relevant to that experience. Without this foundation, we can disconnect further from our authentic source and slip into dis-ease. We have lost our synergy, our beat, our rhythm. We are out of step with the mother and the universe. Corrupted, inherited patterns of trauma begin to negatively influence the internal ecology of the fetus. Seeds of addiction are sown, and we seek relief from the outside ourselves. The fetus is imprinted by experiences of not being enough or having enough, not being wanted, not belonging, or scarcity, imposed limits, or conditioning the mind and body towards struggling for survival. Next slide. Thank you, Jessica. And so when the time for change comes, we move into labor. We move into the perinatal processes following conception. This is the first epic challenge. Do we dance with power and strength that labor intensifies? excited that soon the baby will arrive triumphantly? Or are we confronted by the dark night of the soul? Labouring women left alone, terrified, with a lack of support, abused or violated, compound trauma so it is passed on like a curse from one generation to another. Frequently, women's experience of labour within institutions can be horrific. Mothers can be assaulted by a cascade of stress hormones, compounding already corrupted imprinting in a fetus that may have had a toxic womb experience. We become stuck. Alternatively, labour is a time to dance, to move, to feel surrounded by an abundance of support, to embrace the challenge with magnificent power and strength. Music that reflects and complements the progress of labour supports a tremendous potential innate in this sacred initiation process. When immersed and connected to her essence, the archetypal realms are revealed as her consciousness shifts. The mother will feel that she is powerfully a part of the sacred dance that connects all mothers across time. Slide 6, the next slide, thanks, Jessica. So transition for us, transition and change can be chaos. It is leaving the known and the familiar and moving into the unknown and the unfamiliar. This is where the patriarchy has corrupted the birth process at its most vulnerable point. Instead of giving birth orgasmically, as we were naturally designed, we can escalate into survival mode. Under the influence of a cascade of stress hormones, resist and struggle and disconnect further from our source. This should be a spectacular moment of triumph that has been stolen for over millennia now by those intimidated and afraid of the extraordinary and magnificent power of the sacred feminine. Women are too often disempowered, disconnected, exposed, shamed, assaulted, terrorized, threatened, or ignored. The struggle to be born can become protracted, and imprint corrupted, toxic perceptions of how we relate to ourselves and others in life. This is epidemic throughout the world now. The next slide, thanks, Jessica. When we come from that place of chaos and fall into resistance and disconnection, the death rebirth experience leads us to the toxic breath, abandonment, disconnection from mother, our source and country. An ecology of disconnection dominated by survival hormones compounds and further corrupts our perceptions, impacting on how we feel about ourselves and the world. We become programmed to fight, struggle, resist, compete, strategize for our survival. We feel alone, separate, unsupported. Life can appear hostile, painful, full of suffering, void of love and nourishment. The next slide, Jessica. Or we return to our birthright. We move forward from that established soul line that has taken us from the sacred through a good womb and empowered labor to a triumphant birth where we are empowered to birth triumphantly. The newborn is reunited with the mother. It's the birth of the innocent child. There are golden hours on the breast where the baby is exquisitely nourished again, flooded with feminine hormones that promote well-being, love, bonding, connection, reconnected and synergizing with the heartbeat that has choreographed a sacred, loving connection for 9 months. We feel home, a sense of belonging, reconnected to our biological and our divine mother. We are connected to country. The next slide. So traditionally, senior law women, midwives, were custodians of secret and sacred borning law and women's business. Fully initiated, they were trusted to manage the power intrinsic to birthing and the feminine. They were custodians, meticulously ensuring the maternal ecology of the mother in her sacred and physical forms was honoured and respected. They ensured the mother, and hence the fetus and newborn, were exquisitely nourished biologically, cognitively, emotionally, socially, spiritually. When a mother accepts and inhabits and celebrates her body, she communicates not only the joy of movement to the baby, but that the world is a safe and an abundant home to create and to lean into, to grow and flourish. She is imprinting an ecology of acceptance, permission, and enthusiasm to imagine, engage, explore, connect, relate, to dance, to experience bliss. The last slide, thank you. So I'll leave you with a quote from the extraordinary Gabriel Roth, who has been the foundation of much of the dance work that I have tried to integrate into my practice. If you want to give birth to your true self, you are going to have to dig deep down into that body of yours and let your soul howl. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith and trust. If you turn off your head, your feet will take you where you need to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for this beautiful presentation. Just a quick question. Was this your artwork?
Yes, this is all my artwork.
Amazing. Okay, great.
And her movement. Her movement.
Oh, your movement.
My movement?
Yes.
So in relation to secret business, I'm going to share with you half a movement. So this is one of the movements I encourage my mums with. The rest of the movement I'll share when we do our Mother's Day presentation, but it starts with the earth and our country and stomping up. Then shake a leg. We hug and rock and bring the energy to our heart.
Okay. Beauty.
Stomp up, shake a leg, hug, rock, heart.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So without further ado, let's go to our next speaker. Next, we have Shahzad Khorsandi, who was born and raised in Iran. She studied dance and performance art at the California Institute of the Arts. And she has created a formalized dance vocabulary and pedagogy for Iranian dance, which also exists in a book format. She recently launched an online school, Iranian Dance Academy, and teaches and choreographs in the Bay Area. Welcome.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. And Marianne, that was amazing. Hard to follow. I actually have a video that I'm going to show, but I want to give a brief background on what I do and how I got started in this way of expressing myself. As far as I can remember, as far back as I can remember, I've always naturally moved through or expressed myself through my body. That has always been a natural expression, form of expression for me. I never even thought about dance as a thing or growing up and becoming a dancer or performing in front of anyone. I just always danced. And I never thought about what style I danced in. I just moved however way it just felt right. And as I grew up and I moved to the US when I was 11 and actually started taking dance classes and kind of getting a sense of what this thing called dance is, that it is a thing when you move your body and it's called dance. It became apparent after a while that this really is a language. I always see dance as a movement language to express yourself in. And being bicultural, that idea of how you express yourself, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, in different cultural ways, that idea of cultural expression was always there. And it almost became this sort of a duality of, well, is this a Persian thing or is it an American thing? Am I being my Persian self, my Iranian self, or am I being my American self? And so at one point, I started to realize that in order to really express myself truly, I needed a more solid language, movement language, and movement vocabulary to draw from. And so I really started to explore when I feel like doing this move, like what does that mean? What is that? Is that my Iranian self? Is it a fusion Iranian American self? Is it an American culture coming through? And so it's been decades of exploration that's been really interesting because it's been both a cultural exploration and also an internal exploration for myself, just to find my own choreographic voice, my own dance voice, which also coincided with taking trips back to Iran and really getting back to my own roots and becoming more grounded in who I am and how do I identify myself, what do I identify myself as. And it's always inevitable that I get to a certain point where I'm like, does it even matter? I am who I am. And so these are movements, and yes, there are parts of the movement that has a certain flavor to it, and it goes into this certain kind of accent, so to speak, or this language that maybe it's an Iranian dance language, or maybe it's a fusion dance language, or maybe it's just me. And wherever I was before I came to Earth. I mean, who knows? And so just to give you an idea of the style of movement or the range of styles that I do, I have a compilation of my work that we're just going to play for you just as a movement language just to get an idea. my gesture. Let's see. So this is part of my Iranian movement vocabulary, and this motion comes from the inside, and it's circular, so it's sort of ongoing, but it comes through the ground, up through the body, and it kind of pours itself out. But it's very circular, so it's not just going out here, but it's out and kind of comes back in cycles. And then this is kind of lifting and bringing everything together, framing the heart, and ending with holding everything in the heart. So here and here.
Oh, thank you so much. This was very beautiful, all of it. Thank you, thank you. So we go to the next presenter. Odelia Shargian has a rich background in various somatic practices. Also, she holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and was certified as a doula. She runs her somatic movement education company, Movement Gliss. And recently, she also embarked on a new journey on a training in intuitive eating. So we are looking forward to hearing from you, Odelia.
Thank you. This is great to be here. And I feel I have a connection to the previous two presenters. I have a connection with Marianne because we both are birthing professionals. I don't practice as a doula anymore, but I used to practice as a doula. And I have a big appreciation for your work, Marianne. And Shahrazad, I'm married to an Iranian guy. And he wasn't born in Iran, he was born in Israel, but his parents are Iranian. And I feel like as part of wanting to assimilate, there's not a lot of culture that that I learned about. So this is like an amazing education for me, your presentation. And I feel very enriched. So thank you. I'm excited to go back and tell him. And I can't wait to see how I'm connected to the others that are going to be presenting too, because I'm sure there's some connections there. As for me, I feel like my presentation or like what I do is these days is connected to this topic, but also to the topic of the previous meeting, as I'm sure others too, because I really see dance and movement and somatic practices as a healing form. And I'm a somatic movement therapist and educator. And I focus my work in body acceptance. So my current company is called Embodied Acceptance. It used to be Movement Bliss, but I made a change into embodied acceptance because I felt like these words kind of put together the two things that I'm very passionate about currently. And it's been a result of my own journey with my own body. I struggled for many years accepting my body, and had an eating disorder when I was younger, and as an adult, I more recently I came to the realization that I need to address the deeper causes, the deeper roots of this issue, and that it had a lot to do with trauma and belonging, and a big question of worth, and that I was going to have to let go of a lot of the behaviors that kind of kept everything in place for me. And I drew on everything that I knew from my movement experience, and my embodied practices to help me in my journey, because I always felt like the body, as you might have heard this say, it's a name of a book called The Body Keeps the Score. So everything is being recorded in the body. So what is a better way than to heal the trauma of body shame, other than using the body itself and listening to what the body has to say through movement, through dance. And I decided that this was going to be my calling, and this is how I'm going to help others also go through their own body acceptance journey. And I want to make the dance space and the healing space that I offer an inclusive space as much as possible to as many bodies as possible. Not just different sizes and shapes, but all of the other ways that we can exist in this world. And everything that I offer is informed by a framework that is called HAZE, which stands for Health at Every Size, which centers health actually in its more holistic way, and it looks at various determinants for health other than weight and size, and what's our social background, and what's our emotional state, and how it all goes into this big picture. So everything that I do is kind of aligned with this framework, and I feel like a lot of the tenets of this framework work very well with what I believe in, and there's a big part for movement in that framework. Actually, joyful movement is part of what helps us stay healthy. And I actually offer one of my offerings. I work individually with people on healing their own trauma, and I also offer group programs. And I also that are like wider in scope and are trying to address body acceptance through movement. And I also offer on a regular basis a class called Joyful Movement, which is body inclusive, flow-based, feel-good class that really centers just being in the body. It's semi-structured, so it's not about the form so much as about embodiment and being in the body. And if anyone wants to try that class from the audience who's watching this, you're welcome to contact me through my website, embodiedacceptance.com. and tell me that you were here. And I'm happy to offer you to join my class and just try it out as my guest. And here's the information if you just want to write down the name of the website, and you can find out more about me and my journey and my programs that I offer. And that's it. Thank you very much.
And your movement gesture?
Right. So that's my movement gesture. And that's just came from inside. So I don't know exactly what it means.
Great. Thank you so much. Wendy, did you get this one? Yes, she did. Good. Very nice. Thank you so much, Odelia.
You're welcome.
And next we have Phelan Shiva. Phelan is a dancer with a focus on American fusion belly dance. She directed her own company called Santinka Belly Dance, and she has performed with many other companies internationally. She has recently recentered her focus and is dedicating her time to her work as an astrologer, tarot reader, and a spiritual counselor. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi. So since we're sitting at the studio kitchen table, I will let you know that I'm just recovering from the plague. So I'm going to read my introduction because it will keep my brain focused. But thank you so much to the Sacred Dance Guild and to Wendy and to all of these amazing presenters. I'm really honored to be here with you guys and lucky that I recovered in time to join the party. So my journey to sacred dance began when I was a child. I have always had two clear paths ahead of me, and it took me a few decades to understand how connected they actually are. One of those is dance. All I wanted to do was dance. I grew up quite poor with very strict religious parents, so any kind of dance classes were out of the question. So I danced in whatever ways I could, to pop videos in my living room with my little sisters, in the school gym for PE, at clubs as often as possible when I was older. It wasn't until my early 30s that the stars aligned for me to finally take formal dance classes. And once I started, I didn't stop. I trained and danced and trained and danced until I was a professional touring dancer and instructor. The other path was my spiritual life. I was born into this world a psychic with a strong connection to the other worlds and a very deep sense of the divine. I mentioned I had very strict religious parents, so that was not a good time for me. But once I left my parents' home, I began searching for the spiritual path that was right for me. And that was a very long journey. I even lived in a Buddhist ashram for 6.5 years, but eventually I found my home in Druidry. Along this journey, I was healed by, trained in, and initiated in many healing modalities. So those are the two paths, but there's an unfortunate third factor here, which some of us can relate to, which is trauma. So unfortunately, my childhood was riddled with trauma that caused me to disassociate from my body quite regularly. I remember chanting to myself, "It's just my body, it's not me." This was one of the most damaging but necessary things I had ever done to myself. It took decades to undo. So all of this leads me to where I am now. As I finally found a training ground in dance, I found a way to re-inhabit my body, to reclaim every cell of it as mine. I started to fuse myself and my body back together, and I was healing. This is where I learned of the power of dance to heal the wounds of trauma and give us our bodies back, to remember ourselves. As I began teaching, I always approached dance as available to everyone, regardless of age, fitness, ability, or anything else. I have always managed to keep a group of regular dance students over many years, ranging from their 20s to 60s. I started fusing my dance classes with meditation and healing principles and had always incorporated yoga. The classroom, even in technique class, became a sort of therapy in itself, where everyone was welcome, safe, honored, and felt proud of their achievements. And my goal for all of us was embodiment. True spirit, fused to body, fused to heart. All the while, I was developing my spiritual life and healing practice. The energy of that work would overlap into my dance classes, and I would occasionally venture into spiritual realms with my dance choreographies and sometimes offer ritual dance workshops. Then the pandemic happened, and my public dance career died overnight. I devoted myself fully to my spiritual work and thought maybe I would never dance again. But dance and I don't stay away from each other long. So now I focus my dance life on merging bodies and spirit, on using movement as a bridge to the divine, but more accurately, to dissolve the imaginary boundary between ourselves and divinity, if only for a few minutes at a time, and to facilitate people inhabiting their bodies again, reclaiming them, empowering their physical form. It is my belief that the human body is what we experience the divine through, what magic moves through, and it is our instrument of power and wonder. So Jessica, if you'll please show the photos. So I really like to delve into all range of human experience with my art form. By the way, that's my friend Dimitra down there. Probably because of the troubles that I had to work through myself. I feel like it's very important that we relate to the full range of human experience, even if that is not pretty. So sometimes you may find me happily frolicking with water elementals in my side yard, and other times as a dark goddess reclaiming what is rightfully hers. But in all of my work, I try to acknowledge the parts of us that get lost in shadow, to heal it and to reclaim it. Next picture, please. This is my dance troupe, Satinka. We kind of dismembered over the pandemic, but I created this choreography in direct relationship with my spirit guides. I literally said, hey, you guys want to make a dance with me? And it was originally called Dances with Spirits. It was one of the most powerful pieces I've ever made. And little did I know, it was a prophecy of my own life to come. But that video is too long for this moment. So can I have the next photo, please? And this is the House of Tarot. This one is choreographed by Zoe Jakes, my longtime friend and collaborator. And this one is mediating the mystery and power of the Moon Tarot card. Some gals I haven't danced with in a long time, but I miss them. And the last one, please. Currently, I am collaborating with Sharon Knight, who is a phenomenal magic singer and musician. And we are developing a transformational work series. This is the first one where we are going to incorporate movement, song, vocal expression, tarot, meditation, all of those things. And I'm really excited to be bringing in the vocal aspect, because I think that's another place where we really can free ourselves to access who we really are. So that's my story. I'll give you my gesture. We're actually in my dance studio right now, but the mirrors seem distracting. So take one arm, and you're going to dig deep into the well of who you are. You're going to take the other elbow, lift it, weaving all of those things that you are into yourself and emerging whole. That's the whole gesture. I'll repeat it. Dig deep into the well of who you are. Weave it into yourself and emerge whole. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Phelan. This was very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then last but not least, we have with us today Shikawa Honeychild, who is a proprietress of Sacred Chrysalis, where Taoist energetic meditations and sacred sexuality meet the burlesque, transformational healing, and sistering communities. So many different and profound things together at the same time. She is a universal healing Tao teacher, also a writer, burlesque dancer, and a creative producer. We look forward to hearing from you.
First, I am so filled with gratitude and connection with all the women that have spoke. And like others have said, I relate to everyone in a different aspect. And I'm just very, very grateful to be here. Thank you for having me. I am originally from Arepo land in Colorado. Boulder is the name of the town. And I grew up dancing with Cleo Parker Robinson, who at the time I didn't know was a descendant dancer of Catherine Dunham, who became my mentor and guiding light. And currently, as a day job, I am the programs director at Kumbe Dance in Brooklyn, New York, which is an African diasporic dance center. And I'm spending June celebrating the life and work of Catherine Dunham. And I didn't mean to start here, but I'm also on a Dow camp retreat. So I'm like, woo, in Costa Rica, and it's all coming together. And everything everyone has said is just connecting with what I'm moving through. But what I have learned through Miss Dunham, what has kept revealing itself in my life through her work is that interconnectivity of culture and spirit and the body, the indigeny of us all, and I'm blessed to be a woman of African descent. So that indigeny is very close to me. And what I've seen is that in her work, I said, gosh, it related as a burlesque performer because you've heard of Eartha Kitt, but some of the greatest burlesque dancers of the mid 1900s were recruited through Catherine Dunham's school, among them Gina Dell and an incredible woman named Lottie the Body, both of whom are my mentors. So I had the honor of being her assistant later in her life, and I didn't know it would connect to burlesque. And then studying her technique, there were these pictures that related to a book that I hadn't put together yet. And I saw that Miss Dunham's work was in fact incorporating a practice in Tao called Iron Shirt. It's familiar to a lot of martial arts, but this connection in the body. And burlesque has it. I never wanted to be a nightlife performer, but I knew I wanted to do this form of free expression. So there's that murkiness of nightlife that didn't appeal to me. And I ended up starting to teach at a yoga studio. And I was to teach this performance workshop, but none of the women were doing that, the stuff you have to do to get a show up. And it just made me let that go and embrace where I come from, because Boulder, if you know, it's a very forward place. So I've had a yoga practice all my life and been involved in some type of spiritual exploration. And what happened there is I created this thing called sacred burlesque, because I realized that not every woman wants to be a burlesque performer, but that there's something in burlesque for every woman. And along the way, even before that, I had picked up this book by my teacher, Mantak Chia, the first book I bought when I moved to New York. I bought it right after I finished registering for college at Parsons Institute of Design. I went across the street to the only New Age bookstore, and I got this book called Cultivating Female Sexuality. And I couldn't figure it out by myself. But as I started teaching sacred burlesque, I started incorporating yoni work intuitively, and then I tapped into the book and met my teacher. And now it's this gorgeous place where the movement, the energy systems of the body are meant to merge us and bring us into an unconditional loving of ourselves, sexually to spiritually. And so now movement for me is a place that kind of starts with that energy internally, and then the articulation flows out because you are working to feel your way through it all, as opposed to getting like hitting that finger correctly. You're feeling it through. And so that has been incredible for me. And that's how I share with women. And another beautiful thing that's incorporated with the Taoist work is we have the built-in kind of trauma release work, where we move through our bodies, lodge energy and emotions. So for instance, in our spleen, that's where we're holding our worries about the future, the anxiety, the lack of trust. And as we alchemize that through movement and breath, we find our openness and our intuition, and we release that. Or in our lungs, we hold the past, the depression, and the despair. And as we release that and open and breathe, we find our courage and our sense of righteousness in terms of the right to be here and fulfill our te, our dharma, our purpose. So I love bringing women to a place in their sacred sexual movement that takes them to the inside, so that we're not like performing sexy, but we're genuinely learning that our sexual energy is our life energy, and our sex life and our love life is a small department of that, and giving ourselves back to ourselves, to our full expression, so that we can hear our voice and feel our center and move in the world through that, so that we can release the ancestral trauma that we picked up in the womb, that we carried from on far. And it's just really quite a remarkable work. So Jessica, if you would share the picture, I'm just going to talk you through a very big concept that incorporates it all. Within this image is the entirety of Taoism and how your body is a temple. Down at the bottom, you see the water, and there's two little kids turning a water wheel. That's your first chakra, your sexual energy, churning it up. And then that yellow line going up the back of the spine is how it moves up into your higher centers. And there's 9 peaks up there that open us to the heavenly gates. And then it rinses down. And where you see that Buddha standing in the yellow field with his arms up, that is a physical practice of connecting your tongue to the roof of your mouth, so that the energy goes up and comes back down to rest in your center. And that center is the yellow plane with the palm trees. It's called our lower dantian. And our heart, that green dot is our heart pouring into our center. And that yellow dot that looks like the sun in the middle is our core center, our umbilical cord that we move from. So you can let the picture go now. So I enjoy taking this esoterica and showing you how it is your body, and really giving you the experience of it, so that it's very, very real, and it's got profound implications in midwifery and trauma release. And belly dancing is one of my favorite things to do, and it actually relates to my gesture. So you can find me on the website, Sacred Chrysalis, or reach me on social media. I can't wait to dance with everyone on here. And I'll share my gesture after a close up of my belly as I turn this all around. So we're gonna do, let's poke it up. My gesture is our Maya, but I noticed the other day in practice, there's an earth connecting the earth and heaven. So we're gonna pull up from earth energy like that and bring it down through our center. And then we're gonna bring the heaven, then we're gonna shower ourselves, excuse me, we're going to shower ourselves with heaven and heavenly energy, doing an inward Maya, and we're going to shield ourselves with earth energy, doing an outward Maya. And if it feels like it needs to be reversed for you, do that. So we'll start with the earth and we'll scoop down and reach up and bring it in. And then we'll pull up from heaven and take it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shikawa, for this also very inspirational presentation and the beautiful setting and the beautiful movement. So next, what I would like for us to do is to have like a free flowing conversation on the topic all together as a group. And I have prepared 3 questions for you. Okay, with the rest of the Sacred Dance Guild members also. So the first question I have for you, and you feel free to answer whenever you want to. The first question is, what makes dance sacred for you? Who would like to answer?
I'll jump in.
Thank you.
That it, you know, at the end, there's always you and there's what made you. And through the movement, you get to pour and connect, pour in that which made you by whatever your faith is into yourself and trust it to be inside your cells and grow that trust and relationship through your movement.
Anybody else?
For me, everything everybody has said today has validated why dance is sacred and why it's an imperative. And in my practice, I feel I'm a custodian of that connection between the sacred and matter. So if we can keep that connection alive, then we don't slide into the suffering that's caused when we feel that gap between us and the source. And every single presentation today has sparked an aliveness, an elevation and mood inside me that absolutely validates why the sacred dance is the very energy that keeps us all connected. Beautiful presentations. I just adored everyone.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I get a lot of my inspiration from the elements and from nature. I am lucky enough to live in the forest, so I often go hiking out past my backyard into the woods. And so I often feel that the spirits of nature dance me. Sometimes I'll be out there meditating and then suddenly there's just another presence, and it's as if I'm being invited to their dance. And there's something about that. It's like, it's really what everyone is saying. It's just that connection with that invisible life force that is there, that when we move with it, it opens us in a way that is so healing and makes us whole. And it takes away that part of our ego that keeps us separate from other things. So to me, it's that invitation to dance with that divine energy that's bigger than us, whether that's alone in the woods while I'm meditating, or whether I'm facilitating a workshop based around that. but I feel like we're all on the same page here.
Great. Yes, does anybody else? Odelia, would you like to add? Or
Sure. I think that all forms of dance are sacred, but I'm particularly interested in what's called authentic movement and the movement that emerges organically, naturally from the body when we apply deep listening and don't have you know, an expectation and just kind of wait to see what emerges. And I feel like that's the direct expression of our soul when that happens. And you know, it's often surprising because it's a way that we can know ourselves truly through the body. And what's more sacred than us? It's an expression of us. So we are sacred. Period. That's how I see it. And yeah.
Well, this is really interesting for me because of my background and philosophy of life. I've never been religious. I don't necessarily even consider myself spiritual. So the word sacred is not something that is a regular part of my vocabulary even. I don't have a spiritual practice that I follow, although I respect that, and I think everyone should definitely follow something that resonates with them, and definitely if it helps them be a better person to themselves and to the society, then all the power to them. But what's interesting is that regardless of my not practicing anything spiritual, it's very, very clear to me that there are moments when throughout my life, whether as a child or as an adult, when I dance, where that sense of myself in my body, flesh and bones becomes dissolved, and it's almost like time ceasing to exist, where everything is kind of happening at the same time. Everything is one thing. Maybe it's like, I don't know if this is a cliche of an analogy or not, but a drop becoming a part of the ocean, where yes, you are a drop, but you're also an ocean, where you just feel like all those boundaries just dissolve. I don't know exactly when or how that happens, but there are moments where the kinetic sensation in your body, maybe the music that you're hearing, the emotional expression that you're experiencing, and the surrounding energy, especially if there are other people involved, either dancing with you or witnessing and experiencing the same thing, that all of that becomes one thing. And you can't even stop and define it or think about it, because you're just so in it, in that moment, that you would have to step out of it to even see what's going on. To me, those moments are definitely sacred. They're special. They're something beyond our everyday life on earth. You just tap into something that's greater than yourself, whatever that may be.
Mhm. Thank you all for these answers. The next question I have for you is, what do you think happens when the secret dance becomes public? So, for example, if the word secret doesn't speak to you, you can also replace it by like private dance or marginalized dance. Something that is secret becomes public, is publicly expressed. Is there something that gets lost? Is there something that's added or something gets changed? Yeah.
So I was thinking about this because I can't really speak to something secret like, oh, it's come from a temple and it's a secret teaching dance and then now it's being displayed publicly. I'm not qualified to talk about that, but I can talk about that intimacy of, for instance, if I choreograph something that is coming from spirit, from a really beautiful and sacred and personal place, and I have a divine experience while I'm making that, and then if I try to put that on a stage, then does it change? And I think the answer is, if the dancer, whether that is a soloist or a group, can mediate the energy that sparked it without getting in their minds, then it doesn't matter what happens, because some people in the audience will be like, this is boring. And some people in the audience be like, I feel like it's supposed to be really special, but I don't get it. But somebody in the audience is going to feel it and they're going to get it. And that, to me, is, even if that's only 2 people out of 100, that was an initiation that might spark them to go on their spiritual journey. So I think all of those things are true. I think something gets added and something gets taken away and something gets changed. But if the dancer or dancers can truly mediate the energy that it came with, then it's not the dancers that changed it, it's the various audience responses.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo what you've said there, and also add, this is something I've contemplated a lot, particularly with our grandmothers on country, who are deeply concerned that this sacred and secret business has gone out into the world and become devalued, diluted, homogenized. But I see it a necessary transition, moving from a locality into a global community. We are in transition. We are birthing ourselves into a new state of being. So I trust in the consciousness of individuals who have embraced this task, and I'm amongst them today. So if you're going to use this sacred and secret business for egoic purposes, for your own separate profiting, then I don't think there's a great future in it. Whereas I feel there's a momentum in everything that we are talking about today that we need to all lean into. And that people, through layers of initiation, will take from it what they're able to absorb. Like intuitive eating, you know, you can go to an all-you-can-eat bar, but how much of that are you going to digest? So I absolutely trust in the integrity of the individual, and whether you're looking at it from the point of quantum physics and the united endless field of opportunities, or you identify with spirituality in a different way, that to lean into that process and to keep expanding and dancing forward in joy, then we are going to birth ourselves into a new reality more magnificent than anything we could ever have imagined.
That's beautiful. I'd like to hop on from there, because sometimes I get frustrated with how I see people promoting practices, or I think I used to, but I've come to peace with it because there's entry points. So in my world, there's a lot of talk of yoni egg work, and there's people that are like, just get this and go and da 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 da. And we need those people with jillions of followers to put it out there, and then people can go deeper. It's kind of frustrating to watch it because there's an authentic, but you know that if someone falls into the path and starts moving with it, we know, just like we were guided to go deeper into what we're doing, they're going to want to go deeper and deeper too. So I'm right there with you, Marianne. There's yucky parts of it, but we got to start somewhere.
Yes. Anybody else?
Yeah, I totally agree. I get that. And I think there's something positive about that secret, or that special connection, that you make with whatever is out there when you're dancing, that just becomes more significant when it's witnessed. It's almost as if you become a channel and you're allowing other people to experience what you're experiencing, that who might not be able to experience that otherwise. And then their energy becomes a part of that whole experience. So the whole thing's intensified. So although it's really special to have this intimate experience, it's kind of one-on-one connection by yourself. If you're dancing, maybe you're dancing in nature and you're getting that connection and it's beautiful, there is something special further to take that and be able to share that with other people and allow them to experience that as well. So in terms of it being public in that sense, I can see that being really a positive thing. I can also see that if it goes viral, so to speak, or becomes mass produced like everything else, it can get watered down, it can get misinterpreted, misrepresented, and then everybody is doing in their own versions of it, and it can become really obscure. But it's really inspiring to hear Marianne talk so in such a trustful way that we trust that there are going to be people out there who still are connected to the real thing, that are going to keep it going. And despite maybe others here and there obscuring things, we can still move forward with the original intention and connection.
Thank you. And Odelia, do you want to add something, or?
Yes, sure. So when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about, the people that I work with and my own journey into body acceptance, and the core thing that kind of puts body shame in place is not wanting to be public with our bodies, because our culture gives us all these messages that there's only one way to be in our bodies in the world. So I feel like a lot of the work needs to start maybe in a more secretive place where each person has the safety to connect to their own body, and the dance starts with just basically, sensing and feeling. And as a facilitator, I can kind of hold space for that to happen, and maybe I can be the public. But often I invite people to who are kind of going through that journey to even like turn off their cameras, if that's what's going to make it possible for them to feel safe to experience their own body and to show up in their own body. So I feel like it's important to give people agency to decide how public they want to be, and with their dance. And on the other hand, what I do, I feel like I've taken upon myself. I don't know if it was intentional to kind of be public, even though, you know, it, my body changed when I decided that I wasn't going to engage in any restrictive eating behaviors, and all of the shame came up for me, and I decided that um, if people were to let go of all of this shame, they might need some people to to lead the way and to show up in their bodies as they are, without being afraid. So it's challenging, but I feel like um, there's a place for modeling to people who are completely disconnected with their bodies and not wanting to be in their bodies. Yeah, that's what I have to share.
I'm
Yeah,
just going
thank you.
to
So
jump in for a
interesting.
sec. I know our time is moving along as it tends to do. So I just want to say, anyone who needs to leave, please do what you need to do. But I'd like to just let this continue to unfold, and we'll end when we end. So, Kia, continue.
Yes, I was just going to say, these are such interesting definitions of what the secretive dance is. You know, it's much more connected to the holistic self than maybe we usually think. And my last question to you is this one. I would like to hear you think out loud a little bit about the connection between the profane and the profound. So, feel free to take this question in your own direction. Yeah, maybe it doesn't speak to your practice in particular, but have audience members, those witnessing or those who hear about your dance, your practice, have they indicated that that this dance is somehow like profane to them? And if this has happened before, how do you respond? Profane in dance. Yes. Marianne, maybe goes first.
Um, again, I'm not talking in a contemporary dance context, but in the birthing space, what I've seen is the corrosion from the patriarchy, and that women's business and birthing and women's sexual creative power has been homogenized, fragmented, disempowered, desexualized, corrupted, and it slips into the profane because of how it's interpreted in that environment. When I see like birthing in its natural context and water births and home births that I've attended, then the expression of sexuality doesn't slide into the profane and isn't interpreted as profane by people who are initiated. There's no need to go there. So often I close my eyes when I'm with somebody who's reacting powerfully to something that is erotic and sensual and powerful, and particularly obstetricians. And I don't care if they've turned up in a Porsche. When I close my eyes, what I often see is a little boy in arrested development that is overwhelmed and terrified by the power that can be embodied by the feminine. So I'm not afraid of the profane. I think it has a place and needs expression, but I guide people back to that authentic expression, which shifts you into a reality where that sexuality doesn't need to be profane. It becomes sacred and infinitely expansive in that context.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then was it Shahrzad who had a hand up also?
Yeah, wow, this is such a huge subject, and I don't think there's enough time today or tomorrow. But it's I do want to just bring in my experience with Iranian dance in particular and Iranian culture. It's very complex. It's a very complex view and perspective on dance, and the idea of it being profane or not, and very ambiguous. So in general, I think traditionally with Iranian culture, anything that has to do with the body is profane. So there are arts that are completely celebrated and held in a very respectful and even sacred place, like poetry, painting, calligraphy. But when it comes to dance, because it has to do with the body, it tends to just become this profane thing. It loses all the magic somehow. And yet, dance is so much a part of the culture. So there is this ongoing ambiguity, and almost like a, what do you call it? Like an oxymoron. And it's ironic that dancing is so much a part of everyday life and it's celebrated, and yet it's talked about as if it's just a profane thing, and we don't really want to talk about it. We don't really want to go there. It's not like poetry. When you talk about poetry, it's up here, right? It's up in the heavens, and dancing, oh, the body, oh, it's your feet on earth. It's just, it's just on earth. That's not real art. But it's almost like the way that dance is woven into the culture, with a time and a place to do a certain thing. It's almost like using 4-letter words in a comedy routine where it's laughed at and it's enjoyed and you appreciate it, and yet when you say, what do you think about 4-letter words? Everyone says, oh, that's terrible. It's impolite and it's rude and it's insulting. We don't talk that way. So it's embedded in the culture, but there's so much ambiguity and just weirdness about it that you have to kind of navigate that as a dancer. Even the word dance and the word dancer can be used as insults. I mean, you can call someone a dancer as an insult. And yet the word dance is used to describe, like, in calligraphy, my pen danced, across the page, right? So in that sense, there's that beauty of dance. But then when it comes to the actual dancing body, especially, a woman, whether it's a woman dancing, flaunting her body, in such a profane way, or a man dancing from a homophobic point of view, that kind of, flaunting his sexuality or whatever, it just becomes really profane. So it's just a really interesting issue. I just wanted to bring it up. I'm sure it's not just Iranian culture that deals with that, but it's so significant and such a challenge for Iranian dancers to skirt around this issue and navigate while they're exploring their art form. So just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I had the unfortunate experience once after I did a belly dance performance, which is, you're pretty much dancing in a bra and a skirt and a lot of jewelry, So this woman who was very familiar with my past said, I think it's really weird that you have suffered from all this past sexual trauma and then you choose to get up on stage half naked and dance in front of other people. Firstly, I don't talk to that person anymore, just so you know. That's very hurtful. But I explained to them, I'm not dancing for them. I'm dancing for me. This is about me. And the reason that I chose, or I don't know that I chose belly dance, it kind of we just ran into each other. But very particularly is because of the muscle isolations. You're literally training every single part of your body to be its own voice. And so for me, that was a huge reclaiming, like literally every piece, every part of my body can do different things at different times because I trained it to do that. And so that's like, coming from where I came from, I was like, that's power. I'm like filled with power, And so that was, and I've run into that a lot of times where people think, oh, well, because you aren't wearing a lot of clothes, you're just trying to be a sex object. And I would just refer you to the picture with the crown and the fierce face. And I'm not doing that to be a sex object. I'm doing that because I'm reclaiming something for all women. By doing that's where I'm coming from. Now, other people might be coming from like, oh, I just want to get my boobs up and my hair done, maybe, but that's not the place that I'm coming from. And so I feel like that's my response. And as soon as I felt that I had fully expressed that and really finished that alchemical process, I started covering myself more, not because I felt more modest. I just didn't feel that I needed to roar so loudly. I still love to dance. It still makes me feel powerful, but it's like now I'm internalizing that, but I needed it to be loud. I needed it to fill a space. So that was my experience.
I am right there with you, sister, as a person. Like, there's even a point in time where it's like talking on the internet is much harder than jumping around naked on the internet or on stage or anything like that. Just the embodiment of it and the power. And especially as a Black woman, like taking your body and your agency and your expression back. That's part of why we started. I spent 12 years running Brown Girls Burlesque, women of color, primarily Black, in burlesque, to have a sovereign voice about our sexuality, our sensuality, politics, the world in general. And it was so necessary. And I feel infinitely sexier now, and I don't need to be, I can be, I am just as sexy with my clothes on finally. But it was something that, it was a reclamation that needed to happen. And there's that side of it. And then there's this sneaky, it's the most insidious thing to me, is that the domestication of the patriarchy has us default to objectifying ourselves. Like that is the default. Like women who like get surgeries so that the yoni area looks a particular way, because even that has a prescribed way because of media. So I think that the profanity is a construct in a way. There's, we not yucky elements aside that take it there and have made it that. It's a construct. We've always been full birthing, full heart, full yoni, full spirit, full soul. That's who we really are. And it freaks not gynecologist, the doctor, the baby doctor. It freaks that white coat baby doctor out that a woman is actually gotten to a place where she can enjoy, be orgasmic. Like if you think about it, birth is supposed to be orgasmic because that's what makes the cervix open in a happy way. There's it's like it's this very visceral agency that we are just nipping back. I have to share this quick story about it. So I'm in a Tao Tantra camp with 2 senior teachers in my field right now. And so it's about 30 women here. And today's my birthday, and it's great to be here with you. But last night, they surprised me. We did this sensual thing. Like we smelled and we gave each other sweet treats and beautiful smells and great sensory touch. And at the end, one of the facilitators was like, would you let women eat cake off of you? Can we all take care of you? And that was the most giving experience. Like it taught me so much about receiving. And when I came out of it, I said to myself, this is what every woman needs after a breakup. After that time when you've had the impression of someone on your body and nobody's ever going to feel like that person again and it'll never be the same, you need a bunch of women to take you in safety and give you back the sense of your body. And they're going to have to freak out because amazing things have happened over the last couple of decades, but we're still at the beginning. We're still at the beginning. We're just deep down in the earth shaking the plates. They better watch out. The tsunami is coming after this earthquake.
And anybody else? What do you?
I won't take long. I just to kind of to connect to what was said previously, that the sad thing is that a lot of women, like too many women in our culture, think that it is profane to show up in their bodies and never mind dancing. That's if we carry so much shame around our body, it's hard for us to think about showing up in our bodies and being seen, and it comes from somewhere. It comes from all the messages and this ideal image of how we're supposed to be that comes from the patriarchy, like everyone said. So it all comes back to the patriarchy, and it has everything to do with this definition of what's considered profane. And yeah, we need to take it on. And I believe that this is what we're doing in a way, each one of us.
Well, this was a very strong and empowering and inspiring conversation, totally unlike what I thought it was going to be. So thank you so much, everybody. And I'm going to give now the microphone over to Wendy. Thank you, everybody. Oh, Wendy, you're muted.
Wow. It's going to take me days to go through this. Oh my goodness, you people. Wow. You know what? It's just, this fills my soul. These conversations that dive in and nobody's trying to kind of be pretty or make it okay or say what everybody wants them to say. Wow. I am so grateful to all of you. Thank you, Hia, for kind of moving the conversation. Thank you for those of you who stuck online, even though we went over our time, which is what we do, of course, because what is time anyway, really? And to our 5 panelists, like, I have to tell you, I could have this conversation for like 24 hours because we only just started, right? We did. We started the conversation. And I am so grateful for people like you who are willing to just like challenge our thoughts, our ideas, the things that we brought forward, and just say, you know what, maybe, what about this? What about this idea? And I think, I have to say, I know there's a few men here. Hello, men. Lovely to see you. But I got to say, hi, guys. I have to say, I really do believe it is the women in the world who will make the next change. That, we started with Marianne talking about birthing. And I thought that was so interesting, dance and birth and how it all begins. And we moved all the way through the spectrum. And as each of you spoke, it was about birth. It was your own birth. Culturally, Shaz talked about how culturally. Odelia talked about the body image. Phelan talked about her personal experience. And Chakava, how she went through this. It's all about birth. It's all about how we're born and how we live and how we experience life. And it is we're on the planet. It's in the body, man. Like, really. So, okay, I gotta figure out all these spotlight things. So I'm gonna do that. Hang on one sec, everybody. Get this all organized because then we're gonna do the movements together. Got it. Yeah. There we go. Bye, Fallon. Okay, everybody. So, these guys gave us 5 movements, and I picked from them little pieces and everything. So I want everybody, because as I talked about at the beginning, it's the kaleidoscope of dance. Each of these people have given us something that touched them. So let's all like shake again before we end ourselves. And we're all going to do this. I'd love to put it on gallery, but can you all see me? You do your pin or whatever it is you guys do, because I want to see this on gallery. So I want to look at what we're all doing. So we started with Marianne, and Marianne stomped. Stomp. Can we stomp? And then she did the leg things. Let's get the legs going. Come on, you guys. Legs going. And then she hugged. Oh, and rocked. And rocked. And rocked. And the heart. The heart. The heart. And then Shazrad brought us into this place where we moved. We like took it from the inside into the outside. And we lifted that up. And we brought it in to the heart. We stopped at the heart, which is what we do. And then Odelia, come on, shake it. Shake it, everybody. Come close to each other. We're shaking. I love that shoulder shake. And then we brought the hands down. We're blessing each other because it's what we do. We bless each other. And out. Phelan had us digging deep. Dig deep. And then weaving all the things we do. Weaving. and the energy as a whole. And then Shikeva says, pull it up from the earth. Bring it from the earth. Shower that down. Whoa. And take it out. I want everybody to bring their hands up to the screen. Everybody. We are one. One planet. One dance. One life. It's what we do. Can we wiggle our fingers? Can you feel the energy each from everybody who's here today? And who will be here in the future? Take a deep breath. Hold your heart, because it comes from our heart. Everything comes from the heart. The beginning of the birth with Marianne to the end of our life. Wow. Wow. I am so privileged to be with everybody, to make this our, I'm just gonna put this down here and move up so we can all sit down for 1 minute before we say. I know you might have questions and things you want to say to the presenters, and we've gone way over time, which is what we do, of course, and that's okay too, right? So if you do, I'm going to be sending out the link to the video. If you have questions, send them to me, and I will certainly pass them on to our presenters today. And I am 100% sure that they will respond in whatever way they do. So, yeah. Hia, you have anything you want to offer at the end here?
Oh, a big, deep bow of gratitude for this very inspiring conversation. And I think it's a great topic. We need to keep talking about this. And I personally want to write many articles about this. So I will be contacting you for
Ah,
that.
Hia will be writing about this in her
Yes.
world. So thank you, everybody. I love you all. I'm so grateful that we have this community of people, because it is what will change the world. I really believe that. So stay doing what you do. Keep diving in deeply to all of the things that you do. Stay connected with us. Check our website and do all the things. I will send you links to all of our presenters' websites, the things I talked about today, and the recording from today. So do look for that in your email box. Love to everybody. We're here. We're one. Love you all.